Hey guys, what is up? And today we're going to talk about the worst books of 2020. So this year I did read a lot of duds. They were just not great. I had a lot of 3 stars this year, but I also had a lot of 1 stars, more than usual at least. And so those are the books we're going to talk about. I have quite a few poetry on this, so I don't know if you guys consider those to be books, but I do, and I had a lot of bad poetry this year. So let's get into it. I don't own any of these books because I didn't like them, so I either got rid of them or I just never had them. I either got them from the library or from NetGalley. I do appreciate NetGalley for giving me or letting me have these arcs. The first book on this list is Squall by Chad Norman. I gave this book 1 star. This is a poetry collection that is supposed to be based off of Mary Shelley's life, she's the one who wrote Frankenstein, which I really, really love. It's one of my favorite classics. And this book just wasn't good. I think the issue was that it was written by a male, and men don't understand women, so therefore that was a huge issue within this book. He would talk about these things, and I'm just like, that's just not how women are. It's not how women's bodies act. It's incorrect. So that was my big issue with it. It just wasn't accurate. It was very boring, and I just didn't enjoy it. Next book on this list is another poetry collection, and it is September Love by Lang Leave. This is a book that did come out this year, and I gave it 2 stars. There are a few poems that I did enjoy in this book, but overall, Lang Leave does not have a good track record with me. I do like to read all of her poetry collections because I do find some hidden gems within them, but overall, they're not good. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if I'm just not connecting with her. I'm not sure if her stuff just seems like the same as other poetry authors. The third book on this list is a graphic novel, and it is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. I am so upset that I didn't like this book. I was reading it for a readathon during the summer, and I knew that it would be a quick read because it is a graphic novel, but it was so boring. Nothing happened until like the end of the book, and it was just so disappointing because everyone had hyped it up. I do like the relationship within it. I do think it's a nice relationship, but it is a very confusing, long graphic novel that is just very confusing and kind of not worth your time. There's nothing that really happens. There's nothing really enjoyable about it. It does switch between timelines, and the timelines really aren't clear. The fourth book on this list is Wonderstruck by Brian Selznick. I really did not enjoy it. I kind of enjoyed Hugo Cabret, but I wasn't a huge fan. I do love the artwork in all of these, but I ended up giving Wonderstruck 2 stars. It is kind of a letdown because it does have death rep in it, but it doesn't utilize the fact that he's deaf to its full potential. He could have added a lot more things, a lot more use of sign language, a lot more use of importance of the deaf community, and like how we should be more aware of the deaf community. I thought that was a good chance for him, and he just didn't end up taking it, so that was also an issue for me. The deaf rep was there, but it also was not there. Number 5 is The Dream by Jean Defoe. I think that's how you say it. I gave this book 1 star. Again, this is a graphic novel, and I just don't understand it. I got this off of NetGalley, which I'm so thankful for NetGalley for allowing me to have this arc, but I'm so confused by it. I'm still so confused about this book. I thought I accidentally started a graphic novel series in the middle of the series, but it turns out this is the first one, and it's just very confusing. It is about a guy who's trying to get into the movie industry. I think this was a long time ago, so if I'm completely wrong, I'm so sorry. But it's like something about like the movie industry, and like also erotic performers. It was very, very confusing. I didn't know what happened then. I definitely don't know what happened now. I just don't recommend it. The next book might be a little controversial, but I have an exact reason why this book is one of the worst books that I read in 2020, and it is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I enjoyed this book up until the second half. This book is about a man who is wrongly accused of raping a woman, and his wife is able to vouch for him because she was with him. And so he ends up in jail, and the first half is them having conversations through letters while he's in jail. The second half is him being released from jail. That is where I was not a huge fan. There is a certain amount of behavior he gets whenever he gets out of jail. She has moved on. She is with someone else, and he has a huge issue with that. And I get it, but his entitlement to her and how he feels towards her and how he acts towards her is definitely not okay, and it rubs me the wrong way. I wasn't going to unhaul it just because I do like the conversation about race and the justice system, but I just, every time I looked at it, I thought about a certain scene within it that he basically almost rapes her, and it makes me so uncomfortable and so frustrated that I had to get rid of that book. This book, I think, although has important conversations in it, I do think is very problematic. The first half is fantastic, and I do recommend that half, but I do not recommend the second half, especially if you have triggers toward abuse, because that's exactly what happens, and it's not good. The next book on this list is You Were Never Broken by Jeff Foster. This is another poetry collection, and I did give this book 1 star. This read like a self-help book, and I really hate self-help books. In poetry format, it did not read well. I was very bored, and I felt like he was telling me to go to a therapist, and that doesn't sound fun to me. While I'm reading, I really do not want to be told to go to a therapist. So that was my big issue with the book. I just did not enjoy it. The next book on this list is Still Alice by Lisa Genova. I gave this book 2 stars, and this was a real big letdown for me. I really thought I was going to cry in this book. This had been on my TBR for so long, and it just was not it. Alice is not a likable character. You don't really get to know her except that she has Alzheimer's. That's the whole story. It's about her having Alzheimer's, and I just couldn't connect with Alice, which caused me not to care about the story. There's also this whole subplot where if she can't remember the answers to some of these questions, then she's going to kill herself. That plot did not pan out anywhere in the story. The story just kind of stopped at the end, and it was just kind of upsetting. I wish the subplot would have come out and maybe either fulfilled its plot or just like something would have happened with that. But it was just like there maybe 2 times within the story, and then it just ended really terribly. It wasn't sad, it just was quite boring. If you're easily able to connect with characters, I think you might like this book, but if you have a hard time with connecting to characters very quickly or not being able to understand the characters' feelings, then I probably would not pick this book up. The second to last book on this list is The Most Dangerous Place on Earth by Lindsay Lee Johnson. This book took me forever to read. I read the first half probably early in the year. I think it was pretty early in the year, and I was really enjoying it, and then it just became too much. There were so many characters, I could not keep up, so I put it down. And then I finally was like, well, listen, I just gotta finish reading this. So I did, and I regret it, because the first half is really good. It is really gross, but it's good. Like, it's written very well. I like how the story was going. It was about it's about different students, but the first half is really about this girl and this teacher and how creepy he is, and how this other teacher is his friend and has no clue that he's sleeping with a student. And so it takes place in multiple perspectives, and the whole story does, but whenever it reaches into the other like 17 characters, it makes no sense. There's also like a bunch of subplots that don't make any sense, that are pretty pointless, and I'm just like, this is too much. Like, all of the shit does happen in high school, but like, this is a lot. Like, it's a lot to take in like, I think it's like a 200-page book. Like, it was a lot. I was like, how am I supposed to keep up with all of these characters, all of these plots that may or may not connect with each other? It was just, it was a lot, and my brain could not take it. I cannot tell you every single plot that happened, because it was just crazy. There was a lot of conversation about being a girl in society, and then also just like sexual assault and drinking and stuff. It was just like all thrown in the last like 40 pages. It was all thrown at you. And so you just didn't have a moment to take in what was being said. There was things that could be considered profound, but it was happening so quick that you couldn't take it in. You were like, what is happening? There's so much chaos. So I really wish that it would have taken the time to be profound like it did at the first half and not feel rushed, because I assume the author just wanted it to be a short-ish story, and it should have been longer, if anything. I probably would have enjoyed it if it was longer, because it wouldn't felt so chaotic. The last book on this list is another controversial book, I think. I've known everyone to love this book. I did not end up reading this book when I was younger, so I decided to read it this year since the movie came out. And it is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. I don't think I've read anything by Jerry Spinelli. So I finally read this book, and I listened to it on audiobook, and maybe that was a mistake, but it just was not good. I assume, this is my thought process, I think because I read it so late in my life that I didn't enjoy it, but I can see where a younger audience would really like it, and I know that's where Jerry Spinelli is really targeting, but I just didn't really get the point of it. It was really a manic pixie dream girl type thing, which I think is very odd for a young audience. I know that John Green does it a lot, but his is definitely for YA audiences and not quite middle grade. So I really think it's a little bit odd introducing a manic pixie dream girl type situation. I just didn't think it was good. I don't know if it was well written. I don't think it was. But this was one of the first books I read. I did give it 3 stars because I did laugh throughout, because it was really ridiculous. The whole idea of it. So yeah, I just was not a huge fan of it. So those are the 10 worst books I read this year. I am filming this in November, so books that I've read in November or December are obviously not going to be on this list, but I assume that I cannot read anything worse than these books. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.